far as I know, there are thousands and thousands of our kababayans na gustong pumunta ng Canada. Bakit nga naman hindi, di ba? Kasi as we all know, Canada is a really developed country. Kung makakita tayo ng mga posts ng mga nasa Canada ng mga kababayan natin sa ating social media, ay talagang makikita natin na they have a good life. There in Canada, we can see na they are going to places, they are traveling, they are eating in nice restaurants, and also they have cars and they have their own houses and so and so. So that's why marami talagang mga kababayan natin ang gustong pumunta ng Canada kasi nakakaingganyo naman talaga itong mga nakikita natin at nababalitaan natin tungkol sa buhay sa Canada. So if you're in the Philippines right now and you've never been here in Canada ever, this is the video for you so that you will gain an insight kung ano ba talaga ang magigain natin dito sa Canada once na mag-migrate tayo dito or even mag-work tayo dito sa Canada. So guys, without any further ado, let's jump into the video. So first and foremost is the economic opportunity dito sa Canada. So as I've mentioned earlier, Canada is a really developed country. So it's a really nice country, guys. When you go outside, it's clean. You cannot see trashes on the streets. The people are generally, I would say, the people are disciplined, of course. Wherever you go, meron naman talaga mga pasaway. But overall, ay disiplinado naman talaga ang mga tao dito. Kasi ang mga batas talaga dito ay ini-implement. Kasi pag hindi ka sumunod, you are going to have consequences, fines, and so and so. So when it comes to economic opportunities, dito guys, maraming magagandang trabaho and there are also high-paying jobs that there is no discrimination. Walang discrimination sa age and also gender kasi nga bawal yan dito. Illegal dito guys ang hindi ka tatanggapin sa trabaho for the reason na for example ay buntis ka or dahil babae ka or dahil ikaw ay matanda na. They cannot say na hindi kita tatanggapin dito sa trabaho kasi buntis ka. No. That is illegal. And that is one of the opportunities that you will get here in Canada because as we all know, sa Pilipinas, meron talaga nangyayari talaga guys ang discrimination, especially sa workforce, ang age discrimination is a big thing sa atin, di ba? Na if you reach this certain age, you will have a hard time na makapasok in a certain position. And aside from that guys, there are policies na nagpo-protect ng mga employees dito sa Canada. There are rules and regulations na bawal gawin ng mga employers sa atin na mga employees dahil they will have consequence when they do that. So in other words, in Canada, we are protected as an employee. We have rights. And aside from that, there is an easy path for career growth as long as willing ka na mag-step up. For example, you are willing to get a certificate or a diploma para mag-step up ka sa career mo. And obviously, because of that, you will get high pay grade. Number 2 is that you will experience the high standard of living. Canada has a high standard of living, guys. If you haven't seen it earlier, in the internet, sa mga list ng good countries to live in, Canada is one of them. And aside from that, overall, it's safe here. The crime rate is controlled. I would say na controlled, especially if you live in a smaller city like where we are. There are, of course, crimes happening, especially in big cities or in other cities where there is a dense population, but that is normal. I've never heard a country na totally na eradicate ang crime. So, everywhere you go, there are crimes happening, but Canada is one of the countries na controlled ang crimes. And of course, when you compare it to our country, back home in the Philippines, dito is medyo low talaga ang crime. And you can really rely on the law enforcers, just like the police officers. The third thing that you will gain when you come to Canada is education. So, for kindergarten up to elementary and high school, guys, the education here generally is free. You don't have to pay for tuition fees unless your son or daughter will go into a really private institution na they have a tuition fee. But for public schools, there is zero fee. Alam nyo ba kung ano lang binabayad namin dito? I have an elementary student right now. In September, he is going into grade 5 and from grade 1 to grade 4, I've observed na ang binabayad lang namin dito yearly ay yung school supplies. Yun lang talaga ang significant na mababayad dito dito sa mga bata when it comes to elementary. Now, he's still in elementary obviously, so when he's going to high school, there is probably a little bit more. I'm not really sure. However, if you send your son or daughter to some activities such as like soccer and like dance lessons and stuff, you have to pay for it, of course, out of your pocket. But there are benefits, just like child benefit here in Canada, that I will say will cover that expense. So when it comes to education after high school here in Canada, there are a bunch of technical schools here in Canada na if we compare it to the Philippines, it's like a vocational school. It's like TESDA, but they offer more advanced courses and of course more advanced lessons. And when you want to go to college, pwede ka pong kumuha ng student loan. Student loan is kind of common sa mga gustong mag-aral dito sa Canada. And aside from that, guys, the government is also giving what we call like a training credit. Na in my account, I can see that I have $1,000 in training credit. You can see this in your notice of assessment. You can see this inside your CRA account. Now, when it comes to college and getting like a certificate or diploma, I would recommend, if I were you, that I would get this instead of like a 4-year degree course here in Canada, because aside from it's very expensive, and if you're going to become an international student, the tuition is twice or 3 times more compared to the local students here in Canada, domestic students. So you would pay a hefty amount of money para lang makapag-aral. Now, if you are already here in Canada and you would like to study, I would suggest getting a certificate or a diploma. Why? Because of course the tuition fee is lower than getting a degree. And what I see in their courses, guys, yung mga subjects na ititake mo is very specific to that course. Walang mga ime-eme kung ano-anong mga, kung sa atin ay tinatawag natin na minor subjects. Walang mga ganun. Kasi aside from madadagdagan ng tuition pag meron silang nilagay na mga minor subjects na walang kakwenta-kwenta, is of course madagdagan din ang length ng course, which is here when you get a certificate, for example, is like it takes like 8 months. But if they will put like minor subjects on there, it will take a year or more. So as someone na nakapagtapos ng 4 years sa Philippines, I can really compare na we had a lot of minor subjects back there na hindi talaga natin kailangan. Now, after gaining an education here in Canada, you can really assure na there is a door open for you when it comes to job opportunities. Because dito, kontrolado nila ang number of students in a course. Hindi yung tanggap lang sila ng tanggap kung ilan ang gustong pumasok o gustong mag-aral dito sa certain course na ito. For example, is like nurse. Hindi lahat ng gustong mag-nurse ay pwedeng mag-aral as a nurse. They have limited spots every period, every time na mag-open sila. This is to control the quality of the education, of course. That's the first thing. And then another thing is that after that, they have to make sure na kapag ikaw ay naging nurse na, or when you like become an accountant or something like that, of course, kailangan pagkatapos mo mag-aral ay may spot ka na pwede ka makapag-work right away. Hindi yung ang supply ng mga nakapagtapos ay very much higher compared to the demand. Yung open spots, open like work opportunities. Dahil alam naman natin na sa Pilipinas ay nangyayari talaga yung mga bagay na yan, na walang mga trabaho after makapagtapos ng 4-year course, because there's nothing waiting for us, especially if wala kang backer na solid. Hindi ka makapasok sa isang company. The next thing that you will gain when you come here in Canada is cultural diversity. If you love to make friends with people, especially from other cultures and backgrounds, Canada is the perfect place for you, because Canada has variety of races na nandito living here permanently. Meron tayo mga Indiano, of course, tayo mga Pilipino, may mga Chinese, Koreans, like Ukrainians, Russians, like Africans. Canada is the perfect place for you. Ma-observe natin na ganito pala sila mag-behave, ganito pala sila mag-react, which is, it's a nice way for us to learn more about other races. The fifth thing that you'll get when you come here in Canada is, of course, the social benefits, the nice things that the government will give you here in Canada. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, is there is a child benefit, which is it depends on the income of the parents or the household. So, for for us, in our case, I have a son and he is now 9 years old. He'll be 10 this year. Now, it depends on the income for both me and my husband. So for example, in our household, me and my husband are both making an income. That's why ang kaisa-isang anak namin ay hindi ganun kalaki ang matatanggap na child benefit every month. So for families na maraming anak and the mom is staying at home, medyo malaki talaga. They are going to maybe get the maximum amount, which is around $400 if I'm not mistaken. And also, it depends on the age of the child. Kasi the more na lower yung age ng bata is yung amount naman ay mas malaki compared kung malaki na yung anak niyo. And aside from that is meron tayong tinatawag na dental benefit. Dental benefit is pretty new here in Canada, guys. I just saw this benefit in my account, I think since last year. And this is also dependent on the income of the parents. And as you can see the pattern here in Canada, guys, the government cares for our children more than us. No, I'm just kidding. But I can see that the government kind of cares for our children here in Canada. The next is the unemployment benefit. We have what we call EI or employment insurance na while we are working, may kaltas po ito sa sweldo natin, and once na tayo ay for example ma-lay off or magkasakit, meron po tayong makukuha na amount. When I had my baby, I had to of course undergo a maternity leave, which is 1 year dito sa Canada, guys, ang minimum. And when I went into maternity leave, I think I got like more than 50% sa sahod ko every paycheck. So it's a really big help na we are staying home because we just had a baby and we are taking care of our baby, and then there is some money still coming in our bank account every month because of this employment insurance. And speaking of employment insurance, guys, or maternity leave, the father can also go for a parental leave once you are having your baby. So if you would like to know more about this, you can research it or go to the government's website so that you will really know kung ano ang mga mechanics dito, kung paano kayo makakuha ng parental leave. And this also goes to the parents na mag-a-adapt ng babies or kids. So if you are adopting a child, you are also entitled to have a parental leave. And another thing is we have retirement savings plans just like RRSP, and we have what we call also RESP for our kids education, and TFSA, which is the non-taxable savings account. So if you would like to know more about that, you can research it, or I'm planning to dig deeper into that and make a video about that in the future. So if you subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification, you will get notified once I have that video up. And the last but not the least when it comes to social benefits is our health insurance. We have universal health care here in Canada, guys, that we don't have to pay anything when we go to a clinic or a hospital. So ang babayaran lang is, for example, you have a prescription, but overall, nung nanganak ako, guys, for example, I did not pay for anything. We only paid for the parking fee in the hospital premises, which is around like maybe you will pay like $20 maximum for a few days of stay there in the hospital. So it's really a big help. Kahit na masisaryan man kayo, there is no charge for you or your husband or your family. Your husband can even stay there in the room. Your husband can even attend to you while you are delivering your baby. It was a really nice experience when I had my baby. I don't know to other people's experience, but when it comes to surgery also, I have gone into surgery here in Canada, and overall it's not that bad. Why? Because I didn't have to pay for anything. I had a lot of drugs coming into my body because I was in a lot of pain. I had to have another few days of hospital stay after ng aking surgery, but also I did not have to pay for anything. So that is really a plus for me because I know in the Philippines it's very expensive to have a surgery, and of course when you have to stay in a hospital room, especially if it's a private room. And the last benefit that you will gain by coming to Canada is the opportunity to bring your entire family, even your parents, your siblings, and so on. So if they have the opportunity, if there is a pathway for them, and of course you have the chance to become a Canadian citizen, which is being a Canadian citizen has a lot of benefits, guys, especially if you gain that blue passport. We can just travel to America and the UK without having to get visas because we only have to use our blue passport. And also, even if you're here as a temporary resident, for example, an international student or temporary worker, if you ever give birth here in Canada, your son or daughter will become a Canadian citizen right away. They will have this birth certificate being Canadian. So overall, even if you hear straight from me, also from my previous videos, that it's hard to live in Canada if you don't have a strategy in place, is that overall Canada is a nice place, guys, as long as you don't splurge into those material things, because we have to pay our bills here. And if you don't have a strategy in mind when it comes to financial things, then doon na tayo mahirapan, and we will not see the goodness of Canada anymore because we are worrying about our debts all that time. So if you would like to be here in Canada and live a happy and content life, then right now that you're still in the Philippines, kailangan yung alamin lahat dito. Especially, please gain financial knowledge when it comes to this developed country, dahil iba po sa Philippines compared dito sa Canada. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope you find this helpful sa inyong journey na mag-move from the Philippines or other countries to Canada. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Thank you so much for watching.